be forward, running generators, handling water, washing clothes, or cooking, there is a multiplying effect on the logistics it takes to support a unit. Looking at it in a different way, if we can send 100,000 soldiers into a country, we want as many of them as possible to be engaged directly in the mission of capturing, or influencing the population, or whatever the mission our units got given in that country. Unmanned systems, telecommunications, flexible adaptable platforms, modular repair components, and simpler, more intelligent systems are some of the examples. The Army sponsored a wearable power prize in 2008, seeking to reduce the weight required to provide 20 watts of power for 4 days, from 20 pounds or more to less than 4 kilograms. 4 teams met the challenge completely, all using fuel cell systems. What have we done with that? We're going to capture that in this ICD. Operational energy is a common thread that enables the full range of operational capabilities, from rapid deployment to unmatched lethality or disaster relief. All of these technologies are great, but if our energy approach diverts our soldiers and puts them at additional risk, what is the net benefit? We need to look across the range of .MLPF possibilities to improve our performance without limiting our sustainment options or growing the footprint. So what are we doing about this in TRADOC and in the Army? We've just completed drafting an initial capabilities document and a cost-benefit analysis that delineates energy attributes and metrics that support the Army operational capabilities. So we didn't just start this effort 2-3 weeks ago. We've been working on this for about 6 or 8 months. Taking these insights forward, we'll be in a better position to align our material development, our science and technology, training, and other efforts to provide the greatest operational bang for the buck. A few years ago, as Vice J8, we required energy to be a KPP consideration in all new systems. And through the development of this ICD, we can help drive the establishment of the required KPPs in all of our weapon systems as they go forward. Using this capability-based approach that will advance the development and deployment of operational energy solutions can provide the greatest operational benefit. And there are a number of other activities that have also been already initiated by the Army, from a base camp initial capabilities document, completing capability-based assessments of that base camp document of our capstone and operating concepts with energy in mind. We've completed a tactical fuel and energy implementation plan that identifies improved objectives such as awareness management systems, demand reduction. We've got the Army Science Board working on strengthening sustainability and resilience of a future force, and working a number of initiatives. And we're bringing all this together in an operational energy campaign plan. Last chart. This recently completed draft of the ICD not only lays out our requirements and metrics and prioritizes and evaluates operational energy solutions, but it predicts about a 15% overall savings to get started and establish this operational business case with solutions that we predict can provide the greatest operational payback, and in areas such as the management and networking of energy resources and simplifying logistics are the biggest bang for the buck, which is precisely the intent of a smart grid approach. So in closing, efficiencies in operational energy can lead to substantial increases in effectiveness for the warfighter, and we look forward to your help and support by AUSA, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, and we are going to have questions at the end of the panel, but right now we have one more presenter. It was going to be Dr. Freeman, who unfortunately is unable to join us, but she sent us the Deputy Director for Technology, Chris Gardner. Chris?
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Secretary. give a little bit of different perspective this morning from the S&T side on operational energy. S&T, Science and Technology, feeds the requirements, or is based upon the requirements that we get from TRADOC and the rest of the Army, but it also looks forward to things that maybe were in the video of what we haven't figured out that we don't know yet. So the S&T perspective is across all those areas. First chart, please. As many have already stated this morning, over the past years, we've increased our capability significantly. What that has done to our force in general, both vehicle and soldier-based, though, is both increase the weight on the soldier or vehicle, but also to increase the power required, because most everything we've put on takes some type of power, either for the network, for the jammers, the sensors, and also for the soldier as well. The challenge will be is with regards to how do you reduce that while maintaining the desired capabilities or improving the capabilities across the board. We do have a lot of ongoing work on the power side and energy demand reduction, but what we're doing may be necessary, but is not necessarily sufficient. So in that area, the S&T community is also working with the rest of the Army and the TRADOC brethren on strategies for the future. What do we need to be doing, and what are the right things to be doing, especially in the resource-constrained environment? Next, please. One method of getting at that is we have a lot of different missions across the Army. Each of those take power and energy, but the solutions and or the problems for each of those spaces is not the same. So what may work for reducing the power and energy demands for the soldier may not work for installations and may not work for the vehicles. But there should be some commonality across them. So what we're looking to doing is for each of those domains, looking at the supply, the infrastructure, and the demand, and trying to get to those cross-cutting areas where you get the biggest bang for the buck, and working in each of them. Next, please. And a way to do that from the science and technology, love equations, is breaking it down to the basic parts. So for operational energy, you've got the delivery, the power production, and then the savings. Energy in the form of fuel, batteries, production, meaning what is going on either on the soldier, with the vehicles, on the installations. And we've been doing pretty good with the power production side. We've got the investments in high-density, energy-efficient engines for both, you heard earlier, for aviation and hybrid electrics for ground vehicles, and batteries. One thing we have not been as successful in is weight reduction. Mainly because as soon as we reduce the weight, we find, much like the laptops, they reduce the power, but then they added more capabilities, which takes more power. So at some point, you got to make what is the best trade for both reducing the weight, but providing the desired capability. So along those lines, we are looking at what is our baseline usage on the tactical side. As was discussed earlier, we're doing fairly well on the installations. We don't know what our baseline energy usage is across the tactical fleet. And we're working on methodologies to get at that, to figure out what are the best ways for reducing it. Then as we move forward into that realm of the unknown, what we don't know is how much more complex this is going to be, and what are the best ways for reducing at that point. Next, please. To get at that, we have several strategies that we're looking at that are interrelated and cross-cutting. One is the science and technology power and energy strategy that is being revamped and working towards reducing energy and power. The thrust in that area is reducing platform energy consumption. You can do that in many ways by either taking equipment off, but also working on the technologies that go into the vehicles or on the soldier. One such example is flexible displays and low-powered electronics. If we replace all the displays in essence, the LCD or CRT displays that are in there today, the possibility of reducing both the loaded weight on the vehicle, but also the energy demand. Also looking at low-power electronics or electronics that can withstand higher temperatures, such as silicon carbide. Those technologies would allow to operate at higher temperatures, meaning you wouldn't have to cool them as well or as much to get the same efficiencies. Also looking at more efficient power sources. Our military today has some of the best energy sources and power sources out there, but we're always looking to improve them. In many cases, our batteries are more advanced or utilizing the most advanced that are out there today, and we invest on the companies for the next generation, lithium-ion, lithium carbon monofluoride, and even in the next generation of things such as lithium air primary batteries, that is a possibility of reducing weight by 2 to 4 times. Another thing is smart energy management. You can do that in all domains. You can do that in a microgrid type application. You can do that on vehicles. You could do it across vehicles, and you can even do it on the individual soldier. So we're looking at smart energy management. Does everything need to be on all the time? Or do you have a automatic wake up and sleep capability that then allows you, your power sources to last that much longer? Also looking at proactive thermal management. The biggest users of energy on the battlefield are the ECUs. That's primarily what the generators drive, or the electronic environmental control units. So we're looking at ways to do proactive thermal management, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then also provide energy options. We're working closely with industry on what can we do. Alternative fuels may provide a solution, but we have to figure out how to adapt them, and do they do any harm to our tactical vehicles. But also along those lines, we're looking at solar and other technologies that can provide options if the mission allows for it. Next, please. The other part is the sustainability, the logistics. How do we get things there, and how do we reduce the demands? So what we're looking at is alternative energy sources. One is such as diesel fuel reforming. That's either to drive fuel for a fuel cell, which may operate more efficiently, or to do direct energy conversion on things like a Stirling engine, so that when we do have a more prevalent fuel on the battlefield, you can use an external heat source that is not diesel fuel based, so use whatever's available. Waste to energy conversion. We're looking at trying to get rid of the excess waste that we have on the forward operating bases and other places. Take what you have available to produce the energy. We already have some development in things like kitchens, where you take the excess waste and it drives the energy you need for the field deployable kitchens. And also looking at water generation and purification. That's one of the big areas of interest and issue that we have in the deployed theater. But there are very few resources and ways to do that are economical and energy efficient at the same time. As you heard earlier, we are also developing turbine engines for the aircraft fleets, provide increased horsepower and more efficiency at the same time. So looking to put that in the deployed fleet when it's mature enough and able to do so. Also looking at hybrid electrics for primarily tactical, but there's still challenges there. I mean, does it still meet the operational capability and the mission profiles? Next, please. As was mentioned earlier, there's a section of the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act that was for RDT&E. All of those funds were specifically for energy efficiency technologies. The ones that are in the operational energy realm are really looking at flexible solar arrays, something that is lightweight and portable for the field. Investment into cogeneration, meaning using the waste heat from a generator, say, providing your cooling directly. So you regain some of the efficiencies without having to provide more power just to cool. And then we also have an effort in demonstrating a different type of microgrid technology at Fort Lewis. Next, please. So what can we do? We're looking for help from any venues, from industry, from academia, from other labs within the DoD itself. So we're trying to figure out, how do we define our baseline? Reduce dependence on consumable fuels. And I guess the biggest thing is, how do we measure progress across the board? Now, we can set metrics for our technology based upon physics. Where are we and where we need to go? But many times when you convert that into operational, there are limitations, and you have to decide, is this something that is actually useful, or is it something that we'll just have to wait on until it matures a little bit more? Next, please. Just as an example, one thing that we've been undertaking since 2007 is a hybrid electric vehicle assessment. What this has been evaluating existing hybrid electrics against the fuel usage of the current tactical fleets. So they took the vehicles out to Aberdeen, ran the hybrid electrics across the test ranges and also the standard vehicles. What they've been doing is developing a physics and metrics-based model that we can then evaluate based upon the mission scenario and the loading on the vehicle, which type of hybrids make sense and do they make sense. So this evaluation is coming to a conclusion, and we should have a final report within the next 3 to 4 months on how well hybrids work, and then the analysis based upon if somebody comes in with a new type of hybrid electric, how well it would do and whether the Army would be interested in doing that. Next, please. Yeah. In conclusion, the science and technology community is working to try and bridge the gap between what's the art of the feasible and then what is operationally relevant with regards to energy security and power and energy. Thank you for your time and look forward to your questions.
I want to thank each of our speakers for their leadership and their passion around energy and sustainability. At this point in time, we have room for questions, and I'd encourage you to stand up. I don't think we have a mic. Oh, we have some roaming mics here. So if you'd like to ask a question to any of the speakers.
Yeah, hi. I'm Steve Anderson. I was a senior logistician in Iraq for 15 months. General Lynch, good to see you again there. And I had a question for you, ma'am, and really it's related to what General Fain was saying, too, about operational energy. When I was over there, I became absolutely convinced that the single greatest thing that we could do to reduce money, to save money, and to save lives is to require energy-efficient structures in Iraq and Afghanistan. Not just making it an objective, not just make it a goal, not just say it's something that we need to do. Make it policy. And that's what I submit to you. We need to have policy to require it. If we do, I'm absolutely convinced we're going to save an awful lot of blood and an awful lot of money. If you think about the fully burdened cost of fuel that we talked about earlier, we're going to spend $24 billion this year, DOD, air conditioning inefficient structures in Iraq and Afghanistan. $24 billion. Think about it, 20% improvement in efficiency in that regard. I mean, that's $4 or $5 billion. That's more than the entire U.S. solar industry. I mean, if we thought about our opportunities over there as a great opportunity for our nation, as what Friedman said, to develop the military capabilities over there and consider Iraq and Afghanistan as an operational energy test bed for our nation, and then exploit technologies, and in this case, energy-efficient structures, and bring that back to the United States. I mean, think about the profound impact that we've had. Now, General Chiarelli mentioned about the spray foam initiative. That's one way to make legacy structures energy efficient. But there's many, many designs out there. Industry's got all kinds of solutions. But until it's a requirement, until it's policy, no one, contracting officers at JCCIA, they don't care. They don't have to. It's not a requirement. They're not going to spend more money on an energy efficient structure because they don't have to. You know, I mean, I've seen solicitations here in the last couple of months at Fob Shank for $90 million in tents. 9 years into the war, we're still going to Afghanistan like Alexander went 2,300 years ago. We march in there and we set up a bunch of damn tents. So my question to you, I mean, what can we do to establish policy to require energy efficient structures? Thank you.
Certainly. In August of 2010, the Secretary of the Army tasked my department in setting policy for operational energy. And that's exactly what we're looking at right now. We're evaluating what is possible. We have several tent systems in testing right now, but before we set a policy, we want to make sure that technology makes it achievable. So we're looking at what R value in the tents is achievable so that we can implement that policy. And we think it's 2 to 3 times what we have right now. We're also looking for something that's retrofittable, so we can retrofit existing structures, not having to buy new ones, but some sort of insulating fabric that can go in between the liner and the exterior. So that's exactly what we're doing. And I appreciate your passion around it. It's the same passion reflected in my team. Thank you.
Catherine, maybe I could take just a little bit.
Absolutely.
We just had an IPT recently, a team where we got together with Axim, where we looked at the curve of if you put more money into it initially, what's the payback, what's the energy savings, all that. And I think we're at the conclusion that about a 10% addition in cost is about the knee of the curve that makes it pretty efficient to do that. Now, if we're going to build 50 buildings, that means next year you're going to build 45. Which 5 aren't you going to build? So it's those kinds of tough decisions that we've got to make, but we know we're going to have to make those, and we're headed that way.
If I could just follow up, I'm sorry. The point is, they're actually cheaper to build because you're not spending $30,000 on this bill-spec air conditioners, and that's the
Well,
issue.
yeah.
Right now, we're doing. Unfortunately, we're buying tents, and you got contracting officers doing that, doing what they're supposed to do, which is buy tents. But then the guy right next to him is ordering air conditioners. Now, if they got together and they build an energy-efficient structure from day one, it's actually cheaper. We'd actually save acquisition costs, not to mention the huge sustainment costs. You know, and in regards to what you said about we're looking at it, we've had the spray foam initiative in Iraq for 3 years. We know it works. AUSA did a great study a year ago. I personally briefed the Secretary of the Army, Chief of Staff of the Army, and General Chiarelli on it. It works. It's shown it works. It's saving the $95 million contract in Iraq is saving $1 billion annually. That's according to AUSA. So, I mean, we already know what works. Let's get the policy to support it.
Ma'am, it's T.W. Williams Johnson Controls. Questions for General Lynch, General Van. In your portfolio, notice a couple of ways that the garrisons are able to at least get some analysis done so they can figure out exactly which energy conservation measures are best for them so they can use some of the tools in the portfolio. General Van, I think the Energy and Engineering Analysis Program is one of the analysis. The other one is the Water and Comprehensive Energy and Water Master Plan. Are you on a good guide? The question is, are you on a good glide path to get those done? Because those are the things that the garrisons want to use, obviously, to know which of the tools in the portfolio will best facilitate them meeting, you know, some of the goals that they're trying to do with other means of funding.
We're coming along great on studies. Here's one little glitch we're finding right now. It's in the network at the installations, and what's the security of that network, and if you put all the energy controls on that grid, what does it do and what are the vulnerabilities? I think we're going to work through that. We know we have to, if we're going to get predictive failures or where we know we have buildings that have the controls but they're not being used right or something's wrong in that facility, we've got to know that real quick and upfront and go and make those adjustments and fix it. So you're on to it. We're coming along great on both the water studies and the network and the energy studies. We know how to do it. We have a couple places networked, but we're working out some network problems from the security standpoint. That's kind of where we are, as I understand it.
No, I think you're exactly right. See, we need your help. I mean, I'm going to say this again. As you look at the energy portfolio, you see lots of activities that we're doing, and candidly, a lot of them are generated at the bottom up. Hey, let's try this, and someplace else, let's try that. What we need at the corporate level is an investment strategy. Say, by God, that worked, and let's do that everywhere, right? To do that, we got to have some kind of system in place to be able to consciously and specifically measure progress, and where is the return on investment? And folks like Johnson Controls and many of you out there can help us figure out how to do that. That's why this partnership is so important.
Morning. My name is Sean Walsh, and I work in the Energy and Partnerships Office for Ms. Hammock. We, the Army, are doing a lot to take the lead for energy security with our energy initiatives, and we're working with industry on our installations. But what I didn't hear this morning, although General Lynch talked about leadership and turning off the lights, what can our leadership do to change the culture of our soldiers and change the culture of the Army to achieve efficiencies and get them to turn off the lights? You know, beyond what General Lynch mentioned, just the leaders. How do we instill it in our young soldiers in our training base, you know, so that it goes from the installation all the way to our contingency base camps? Thank you.
I'll just take the first step. I think you have to incentivize it. I go back to that, my little experience where I had the air conditioning and the heater running for a month. Great disincentive to do that, but I think we've got to incentivize it. First of all, we got to meter it. We got to tell people what they're using. And then I think that a good method is to give them some of the receipts if they do well, and encourage people to really watch this personally. So I think that's part of it. I know in RCI housing, we're getting very efficient housing built, but now it still takes a user in that building, and that's what you're, I think, suggesting. So to me, it's all about incentives. How do we incentivize families to do this? You're incentivized if you own your own home because that bill comes to you. It doesn't come to you in the Army. But what if we gave you the upside of that bill if you really conserved? Maybe that's a way.
I think you're all over a major issue here, and it's the culture of what we're dealing with. So how do you get the youngster who's living in the barracks to realize he ought not have both plasma televisions, his computer, and his microwave working simultaneously? How do you make sure he realizes that there's a cost involved, and maybe he bears a portion of that cost? I mean, that's what we have to figure out. So neither one of us are giving you a great answer to a good question, but we know it's the issue. How do you get the culture? How do you incentivize good behavior? You know, the under said, hey, we got to get out of politics and slogans when it comes to energy. I think that's a good way to say it. At the end of the day, individuals and organizations are going to do what they're incentivized to do. And a lot of it is financial, and if indeed they can see that good behavior gives them a reward, they're probably likely to do that.
Just a little kind of a interesting vignette. I went to a hotel recently that they measured the wattage you put out on the treadmill or the bikes and then they would give you a breakfast if you earned enough of that. That's pretty cool stuff. I was running hard that day, you know? But, I mean, it's just, you know, how do we incentivize, I think.
That's wonderful. I didn't know they did that. That's
Very good.
My name is Per Rasmussen. I come from the Danish embassy here in town. I've been here some years, and I had the opportunity to observe this system, and I have a special interest in the energy area because Denmark, a little country in north part of Europe, is pretty advanced when it comes to energy solutions. I had a great pleasure of working together with Mr. Jerry Hansen from the Army and Dr. Kevin Geis. They're great Americans. They've been very interested in what I've shown them of smart solutions from Denmark. One thing, though, that tricks me a little bit is the link between the higher levels in the Army and the practical people doing the work out there. I have worked in other areas than energy with people on barracks, and what surprises me is there's sort of like people are afraid to meet with us. I don't know if they think we're aliens or whatever, but there's a reluctancy to let us in the gate and present what we have to show you guys. And we would hate to see you in some areas reinvent the wheel, because we really have invented the wheel in some areas when it comes to energy. A company like Vestas is the biggest producer of wind turbines in the world. By the way, it's a huge American company like Grundfos, company like Danfoss. The gentleman there was talking about R&T on water. Grundfos uses 18% of their revenue annually in R&T. They have a university working on efficiency in water and energy. So I'm a little bit surprised that my inbox is not overcrowded with people who wants to talk to Danish companies or talk to me. I'm a little bit surprised my voicemail is not crowded with that. So my appeal is just that make sure that your folks down there lower in the system are not afraid of seeing us and open the gates when we like to come. We have a company that would like to come here in the middle of November to Fort Benning to show a system that actually will get rid of your garbage, and you make methane gas and you make mulch from your gas, so you waste so you don't put it on the landfill. But it's awfully quiet down in Fort Benning, so if anybody could help me get the door open, I'll appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. We can open doors.
Very good, thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Madam Secretary, gentlemen, first of all, thank you for your time today on this very important subject. My name is Colonel Dave Karstens. I'm a senior service fellow working with the Center on Climate Change and National Security. My question is about alternative fuel sources for current and future operations. So General Vane, this question may be for you, sir. Alternative fuel sources gets a lot of press. Combat vehicles, Army, Navy, Air Force running off alternative fuels. I mean, incredibly important that we can get our current and future combat systems to that level. But that's probably only one part of the problem. Part of the business model needs to look at where our current and future operational bases will be, and being able to contract those alternative fuels from traditional partners so we don't have to bring it all the way from the United States, whatever that alternative fuel source may be. So as part of that business model, what are we looking at to develop a capability with our traditional allies to develop those alternative fuel sources in strategically important parts of the world? So once we get our tanks running off those fuels, we can then get it from our traditional allies so we don't have to ship it from the United States. Thank you.
General Vane, you want
I don't
to
think that's
comment?
an operational issue yet, but we can certainly take a look at it in our building partnership and building partnership capacities strategy that we're building today. You kind of had a number of different questions in there. You know, as far as contracting in other theaters is probably an issue as much about policy, and then asking our combatant commanders and Army Service Component commanders to make sure they take that under advisement when they make all those arrangements. Inside of our capabilities document, we're establishing, you know, the cost benefit, as I mentioned earlier, analysis that should be a part of any solution to an energy issue. So an alternative fuel, if it's provides the cost benefit better than the fuel that might be existing today or that's in the proposed solution, then that would be one that we would be trying to encourage to come in a competitive process and be part of our solution. I think you know, many of us have chased this single fuel notion for a number of years. All the services are still, to a certain degree, chasing that, and you know, alternative fuels has some advantages and disadvantages when you look at the fully burdened cost of now having multiple fuels as opposed to a single fuel. So that's why we want to put that into a baseline assessment with a cost-benefit analysis compared to it to make sure that the kind of things that we pursue do make the long-term sense for both the Army and the nation.
And OSD has a new Assistant Secretary for Operational Fuel, that's Sharon Burke. And she's trying to focus together all of the services on the issues around alternative fuels for operational purposes. And I know she put together a document recently on what the requirements are, and global availability was part of that document. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ann Crawley from Department of Energy. We've been working with the Army, particularly at Fort Bliss.